Why do things go viral? Turns out there's actually a pretty easy way to define a piece of content that has the potential to do so. It's not actually random or mysterious because there are real commonalities with posts that are shared widely across the internet. If you're curious about what those commonalities are, then stick around and we'll talk about what the actual research tells us about viral social media posts. We're all about science here, so let's uncover the science of what makes things go viral. If you're a content creator, you don't have to brandish your pitchforks and take on the algorithms anymore. You can just listen in and incorporate these findings into your own work. And then, profit? Admittedly, I'm straddling kind of a weird line here because this isn't a business or marketing channel and I don't really have a lot of entrepreneurial advice to give out. Even though I have 15 years of experience in content, editorial, and marketing, what I do here is that I talk about the hard science and research behind things. And so that's what we're going to do now. So if you're watching this for business-minded reasons, I would encourage you to keep watching. I'd also encourage you that learning about the real data behind whatever it is you're working on will always get you better results than vibes and the so-called common knowledge of your industry. Okay, so I came to this subject while researching my last video about viral social media posts and collective narcissism. If you haven't seen that yet, I highly recommend you check it out if you're interested in going viral or if you just want to know why human information spreads the way that it does. The thing that got me into that video was a study about the viral posts surrounding the Stop the Steal movement that Trump launched when he lost the 2020 presidential election. The main thing that will help us segue into today's subject matter is the fact that those posts were obviously all extremely negative. And for my entire career, I've been taught, and I've taught others the same thing, the content goes the most viral if it elicits strong negative emotions in the reader or the viewer. This is supposed to be the entry point into what makes content go viral. Everyone that I have ever worked with, everyone that I talk to who doesn't work in the field professionally even, all of us seem to have a pretty solidified opinion that based on our own experience, that creating very negative reactions in people is the way to make a lot of money doing content. So you can imagine my surprise when I found out that's wrong. Yeah, crazy. We have this gigantic negative feedback loop of digital publishing right now, and it's all based on the fact that outrage keeps us glued to our screens and scrolling through our feeds. There are many successful examples of people and organizations that have made a killing off of this, just creating giant echo chambers based on in-group superiority and appealing to people whose ideologies they might not even share. They just found it easy to piss them off and repeatedly enough to make a bunch of ad dollars from their eyeballs. And this is a thing I've talked about on this channel before, and I have a whole video or two even about that. The thing is though, opinions don't equal data. Anecdotes are not data. Even if everyone alive believes the same thing, that doesn't make it real. I won't go too far with this because strong negative emotions can obviously make content go viral, and we see it happen every day. And it's also backed up in the research. But it's not the most effective way to make viral content. There is a surprising characteristic of viral content that makes something more likely to be widespread on the internet, and far more likely than content that creates strong negative emotions. So what is that thing? The short answer is that content that evokes positive emotions in people is more likely to go viral overall. And this was wildly surprising for me. I think of like the panda coverage from Anchorman, and I'm just like, what? It's about, what is Ling Ling the panda? That makes things that people watch that more than the end of the world on the news all the time. What? And the longer answer here is that scientists from UPenn did a comprehensive analysis about 7,000 headlines over a 3-month period, and what they found was a thorough categorization of virality. Interestingly, the UPenn study found that positive emotional content was more likely to go viral overall. The results found that this is because strong emotional responses are what works, like we thought. Just that what creates those strong emotions is not what we thought. The feeling of awe, being either positive or negative, was the most powerful. And anger and frustration did work well, but it turns out that positivity wins out above everything else. The conclusions they drew from the data are partially that strong physiological arousal is what makes content go viral. Whereas activating emotions help content spread, deactivating emotions like anger and sadness actually hinder the spread of content, and they make people less inclined to share them. It didn't matter what kind of content or how interesting or helpful or even how practical it was in terms of guides. The results were held up across all different varieties of topics and fields. But that's not where the story ends either, because another study out of the University of Texas also surveyed a huge amount of shared articles from users. Researchers there looked at 387,486 articles sent from 7 million unique users on the messaging app WeChat. And the study authors there found that the most important driver of the spread of viral content were 3 emotional states. They qualified them as love, surprise, and anxiety. But Texas researchers even added a delineation by age and other social factors. And this is really fascinating, because older people were found to be more likely to share articles that elicited the emotional responses of anger and anxiety, and so were people without a lot of friends. Younger people in general were more likely to share articles that elicited feelings of disgust. People with a lot of friends were found to share articles that showcased love, anxiety, anticipation, or also disgust. So the crazy thing here is that even emotional clusters that can have the same emotions inside of them can have completely different results depending on the exact emotion. The lead researcher pointed out that both anger and anxiety are obviously negative emotions, for instance, but anxiety far outspread anger when it came to analyzing the virality of the sample content. And the factors that make different people share different things are visible here too, and the implications of that are held up in other research also. Because love and anxiety are potentially linked to connection or desire to support or warn other people. Other emotions, like many negative ones, anger in particular, are isolating and probably shared less because they're self-focused and not communal feelings. Interestingly enough, they found the same discrepancy with positive emotions. And joy, for example, has the same exact dampening effect on whether content is shared or not, and the researchers pointed out that this is also an emotion that's very self-focused and isolating. One final study I pulled for this analysis comes from the University of Michigan. Researchers there analyzed 2 gigantic data sets full of messages, both of them coming from really controversial and scandalous moments. One of them came from Brexit, and the other is from the debate surrounding the Nordstream 2 gas pipeline. The Michigan study found 3 things that made posts go viral during these 2 moments in time. The first was a negativity bias. The second was causal arguments, and the third was threats to core values. The negativity bias results make sense, as we've seen before. I do wonder if the data sets and moments in time they picked maybe pushed the collective samples toward the negative in the first place, so I'm thinking a little bit about that. And also, we know that different negative emotions have considerably different results in making content go viral. Causal argument is a tool of language, obviously, that can be used in debate at moments like the researchers analyzed. Things like, if the pipeline is built and turned on, it'll impact the surrounding environment in a negative way, or if the pipeline is built, the economic impact will be really spiffy. The study authors pointed out the fact that causal language is simply one of the main ways that humans communicate overall. Apparently, 33% of verb relations in the French language express causation, which is fascinating. So we're just talking about cause and effect all the time. It makes sense that that's one of the ways that information would spread on the internet too. But it's really the threats to core values that ties all of this together for me. The researchers pointed out that this kind of content could be found across all other content groupings. You could have positive values, of course. You can have negative values, causal arguments about values, and positive or negative causal arguments. Because with a super unofficial and high concept survey of the data from all these studies, it seems to me that this says something about the way that we connect with others and how we perceive ourselves. And in my last video about the viral negative posts from the Stop the Steal movement, the data told us that was all driven by collective narcissism, this being a mechanism for feeling that your in-group is superior to other groups. So once again, I'm just left with the conclusion that we're all just cave people, playing with talking robots and nuclear weapons. Physiologically, we still live in the world of hunter-gatherers and woolly mammoths. Things are scary inside our heads, and scarcity is the governing concept of our collective actions. Fortunately, or really unfortunately, for marketers, our human programming makes it easier to predict what kind of content is going to get traction. As we've seen today, things are more likely to go viral if they're associated with positive emotions above all. Some negative emotions also have a chance to go viral, some more than others, like anxiety over anger. What brings it all home is whether content expresses a value statement that others can readily identify with, and then share along as an aspect of declaring that identity to the world, and that's a really big one. Make sure to keep looking out for studies that further explore why information spreads on the internet. I know that I definitely will. In order to figure out how to effectively communicate with one another and solve the big problems of our time, one of the best and most important things we can do is simply pin down exactly how to talk to each other. Sharing viral content might not seem like the best way to do that, especially when the data shows that only 25% of people who share articles actually read them. I talk about that in one of my videos on headlines and the state of modern journalism, but crafting content that will actually see a wide audience is a good place to start regardless, and we have the tools now to find an audience for things that we want to share. I'll see you next time. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so I can go viral. Happy viral content extravaganza to all who celebrate. Happy viral content extravaganza.